LegalZoom kind of was it was a journey because initially the idea, the concept we came up with was a bunch of stay-at-home attorneys that would answer questions online for 99 cents a minute. That was the initial concept. And it was called Law Garden at the time because we were all into the Soundgarden, the band. So we called it Law Garden. It didn't go anywhere because what we realized is, number one, at the end of the day, you were still providing legal advice. And at that time, there were very strict laws against fee splitting and so forth. And so, or even raising capital from non-attorneys. So we could never take an outside capital unless you're an attorney. And then we could never, split those profits with others and so forth. And we could never take the company public either. So we can't raise money from venture capital. You couldn't take it public. It was kind of an issue, right? So, because at the end of the day, you're still basically a law firm. So we decided to pivot that, and that became LegalZoom, which was more online legal documents self-help, right, with a little bit of guidance from software. So the idea was kind of taking the TurboTax model for tax preparation, but doing that for very simple, straightforward legal documents. And so we did that, launched that in 2001. It was fun. It was early days of the internet.
And what were some of the things that happened early on where you felt like, hey, I really am taking risk here, like you're starting to face some challenges and you weren't really actually sure what was going to happen?
Oh, that's every day. The early days of any business, that's every day. And if you're not hustling every day, then you're going to lose, right? It's the path you choose, and you just got to grind it out. And so for us at LegalZoom, it was very, very difficult to raise capital because we're a couple of attorneys with not that much experience. And I remember we would go to all these venture capital firms and they would just flat out reject us. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe they didn't like us. I don't know. But we just could not raise capital. And then also it was a bad time too. Most importantly, it was a bad time. The timing was off because the dot-com bubble had just burst, the first dot-com crash. And so that was March of 2001. I remember the day. And then after that, it was almost impossible to ask anyone for money for any dot-com idea. And so we just had to go it alone. So I borrowed a tiny bit of money from my parents at that time. It was $50,000. And Brian Liu borrowed $50,000 from his parents. Luckily, we were fortunate enough that our parents could support us to that amount. And that's how we started LegalZoom, with $100,000, and we never had to raise again. So LegalZoom was really bootstrapped in that sense from that point on. It's just we just kind of ran off our own profits and kept growing it.
And when did you feel like you achieved a breakthrough and that the business was actually there to stay?
I think it was by accident almost, right? So when we first started LegalZoom, early days of the internet, and I remember I had a friend from UCLA who took a job at Idea Labs in Pasadena. And one of the products that they were working on was the first paid search engine called GoTo.com. GoTo eventually got acquired by Yahoo, and the patents got acquired by Google and everything. That became the backbone of paid search. But at the time when GoTo first started, my friend called me up and said, Brian, I heard you started this internet company. Do you need customers? I said, yeah, of course. He says, why don't you try GoTo, right? Stick $20 into this account and I'll help you set it up and let's see if you get any orders or customers. So that's a great idea. So I stuck $20 in the account, and every click on that search engine cost 1 cent per click. And I remember we burned through about 130 clicks, so $1.30, and we got an order, right? And I still remember that order. His name was Sasan Dastardi in Miami, Florida. So Sasan, if you're listening, thank you. But he was our very first customer, because before that, it was really like my sister ordered a will, like Brian Liu's cousin ordered something, stuff like that. But no actual real orders. But that was our first real order. And that's when we realized, hey, this paid search marketing stuff actually works. And so we started growing with paid search. And it got to the point, it was a crazy period. Because I remember you had to bid on each term at that time. And for example, like the word incorporate, right, for an incorporation service, like if you want to form a company. I remember that we were paying something like 5 cents a click, and then it was 10 cents a click, And then it all of a sudden jumped up to $1 a click. At one point, it was hitting like $50 a click. No joke. From 1 cent to
Wow.
like $50 a click. And we're like, oh my God, that's insane, right? But we were still making it work because we were at that time the largest and most scaled. So we had the actual profits to put back into marketing. And it was difficult to compete against that. So we kind of outgrew everybody. Yeah, so it was really paid search that led the way and gave us confidence that we had a business.
That's awesome. And what were you like? Who were you as a person at the time? Like, what did you?
I was just a young kid. In a lot of ways, I was not that young, but I started LegalZoom when I think was 26 years old. So after law school, after a couple years of experience, and then kind of started LegalZoom. Still single at the time, and just kind of just working around the clock. You know, I was at that age where it's like I didn't have a lot of responsibilities outside of myself, and so just worked and just kept grinding. It was very, very late nights, almost every night, because we really didn't have that many people. We had just four of us, and then it was 5 and 6 and so forth. But it was yeah, it was just hard work, and it's like that's the thing. It's like no one's ever just going to show up on your doorstep and say, "Here's your success." It doesn't happen that way. I mean, very few people win the lotto. You know what I'm saying? It's like usually it's like, and most of the time, 99.9999% of the time, you're going to have to work for it, right? And I'm really, I really did work for it, right? So did my partners. We were working around the clock and nonstop, and that's what it took.